Did Adam Thorn collect evidence of the orang Pendek during his return trip to Sumatra? I'm Ryan Geckner, and I'm here with Chris Daly.
What new technology was deployed in Loch Ness Center's annual Nessie hunt? Why was a temporary restraining order issued in the developing Conjuring House ownership case? This is Headlines from the Beyond.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Headlines from the Beyond. We've got some cool stories this week, or at least I think so anyway, especially this first one. So, if you listen to our previous episode, was it 2 episodes ago, I think?
What are you talking about?
The orang Pendek stuff.
Oh, yeah, that was, I think, two
Yeah,
episodes
I
ago.
think about 2 episodes ago, we mentioned Adam Thorn and his expedition to Sumatra to hopefully capture evidence of the orang pendek. He's returned from that trip to place those trap cameras and let them sit in the jungles for 6 months. And he posted a video on his YouTube of what happened during that trip that was pretty interesting, or at least leaves room for more questions. So while he was there, he collected eDNA, like he said, from multiple locations and found several possible hair samples. But that actually wasn't the most interesting thing that happened while he was there. While he was in the Sumatran jungles, he was placing trap cameras not only to leave them for 6 months, but he was placing them and then checking them while he was still there. And one of them he had placed with a speaker that he was doing call blasting for. So if you're familiar with any of the Sasquatch or crypto hominid research, that's when people blast out calls from other apes, or there's the really famous Ohio howl that Matt Moneymaker got, and they hope to sort of elicit a response, right? So he did this, and he left this speaker going next to his camera, and it captured some video. So initially in his video, he describes how he walked up to the camera and he noticed there was mud kind of smeared over the trap camera, which he thought was kind of odd, and so that made him look to see, oh, well, what did that? And it captured two little video clips that are about 20 seconds long each of, well, first of all, something messing with the camera. Looks like it's touching the lens and smearing mud all over the screen. I don't think it was intentional based on watching the video myself. And then in the second clip, he's got what looks like a hairy cinnamon colored limb that looks kind of like it kind of looks like an orangutan arm
It
a
does look a
bit,
little bit like an orangutan arm.
that is seen in front of the camera. Now, he goes on in his video to talk about how he sat with his guide and his porter and racked their brains about what it could be. And they really ruled out pretty much any of the native wildlife that's known in the region. If it was an orangutan, that would be just as exciting as if it was an orang pendek, because this is like a population of orangutans that's hundreds of miles from the nearest one, totally unknown in this region. So that would be cool, even if it's not an orang pendek. But he says in the video himself that it isn't definitive proof, obviously, but he's really unsure what it could be. We'll really be looking forward to seeing what's collected on the camera traps that he's leaving in the Sumatran jungle for the next several months. But we'll link the video in the show notes. It's really fun to watch. It reminds me of original Destination Truth days. That's probably why I love it so much. But you can see the video on his YouTube channel and you can judge for yourself what you think is in that video.
Yeah, I want to go back for a second to something you were saying about the mud being smeared on there.
Uh-huh.
The other thing he mentioned, he had this speaker that was playing the
Mm-hmm.
calls, and when he put the speaker down, he covered it with leaves,
Mm-hmm.
to somewhat
Hi, the
camouflage it,
camouflage is for
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But when he came back, it was uncovered,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or he said he thinks it was. He was second guessing himself,
Yeah.
is kind of how it looked in the video. But if that's the case, if there's mud smeared and the leaves were removed from the speaker, it could have been purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it definitely was, but
Yeah.
I think there is some room for interpretation there.
Yeah, he said that he thought whatever it was maybe trying to mess with the speaker to see where the sound was coming from, which makes sense. And to your point about him, kind of being unsure about whether or not the leaves were there, I really appreciated that about,
Absolutely.
when you go to the video, you'll see that like he does use the sort of YouTube clickbaity titles and stuff, but when you watch the actual video, he really is kind of disappointed in a sense that like this is what he got.
I think he was really hoping it was something clearer.
Yeah, definitely. And
It's
then
another fuzzy video.
it really is, but it's less fuzzy than if you're familiar with fuzzy Bigfoot videos, it's much less fuzzy than what you expect.
Right,
So
right.
I was I was pretty surprised, and when I saw that he had posted the video on his YouTube, I made sure that I watched it, and I was not disappointed. So I would recommend checking it out if you're into crypto hominids at all.
So moving to another cryptid,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all familiar with Nessie. Annually, apparently, there is a Nessie hunt, and
As
not
there
what
should be.
absolutely. And of course, you can go any time of year that you would like, but once a year, the Loch Ness Center hosts this hunt,
Hmm.
and hundreds of people come, all coming together to look for Nessie. And it was held from May 28th to the 31st. So this one, and they move it around a little bit, but this one focused on Urquhart Bay, which is one of the most popular locations for sightings of Nessie. And this year they did something unique. They used sonar systems and underwater drones to really try to map out what the underwater environment looks like of Loch Ness. Now, of course, we haven't seen the footage from this, but
We'll give
they
them some
did
time to edit it.
give them some time of that, yeah. But Deep Sea Vision brought a new autonomous submarine to the area to try to map the terrain. And of course, the submarine had a name,
Of course.
Micro Millie.
It's a good name for a drone. I like it.
Sure, why not? The weekend ended, not shockingly, with no new sightings or evidence. I say not shockingly because if there had been, we all would have heard
Y'all would have
about
heard
it.
about it. Yeah, well, you wouldn't be hearing from it from us.
Right. But I think it's awesome that they have this thing that goes on annually.
Hmm. That's cool.
So this made me start looking more. Has anyone been seeing Nessie?
Hmm.
And actually, this year there have been six Nessie sightings. The most recent was U.S. tourist Nicholas Wygand, and that was on May 18th, so not that long ago,
Hmm.
at 10:14 a.m. Now this is where it gets a little weird. He was on a bus, on a tour bus, driving past the lake, and he says he was driving, or he was not driving, but the bus was going relatively fast.
Hmm.
So he didn't see everything that was on his camera while it was happening. He looked back later and he saw something breaking the surface. And so there's film footage, and we'll link to it in the show notes.
Hmm.
But it's you can see something poking out of the water. I'm not sure what it is, but it's there.
It's obviously Nessie, Chris. It's
That's right. It's
obviously
obviously Nessie. So, the Nessie sightings continue. All right, one more story.
Speaking of things that continue,
Books that just continue
will
and don't
not
stop.
stop.
So we're back to the Conjuring house. A judge released a restraining order against Elton Castee in the Conjuring house ownership case this week. So Judge Melissa Darrigan, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so forgive me, Melissa, if I am not,
If
found
you're a
that
listener, Melissa, that's awesome.
that's awesome, yes.
We love that for you and for us.
So she found that Jason Hawes has made a prima facie argument. Basically, the evidence that he has submitted is strong enough to support the claim that he owns the Conjuring house. That's a big deal because we've been going back and forth on all of this. She also found that YouTuber Elton Castee had trespassed on the property at least 3 times since Jacqueline Nunez signed the deed over in December. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, that's something.
And stated that Castee and his company, Summit and Stone LLC, do not have unlimited access to the property, but can inspect it every 30 days after providing at least 48 hours notice. So this is my favorite part of this story.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw the story, I was like, "Oh, is there beef between Jason and Elton?"
Yeah,
I didn't ever really think it kind of makes sense now that we're looking at and now that we're seeing this because
right.
this dropped just a couple of days ago. It makes sense that there's some issue here because Elton and his LLC, they own the mortgage.
Right.
They don't actually own the property. So it's not like your mortgage lender is not going to just show up at your house.
Not typically.
They shouldn't be doing that. And if they are, you need to go talk to Judge Melissa Darrigan. It seems like because if you remember, Elton and his LLC purchased the Warren's house and the Warren Museum recently, and obviously have been doing lots of things with traveling the museum around and renting the house out for investigations and as an Airbnb. And it seems like maybe they had hoped that by being the mortgage owner, they'd be able to kind of do some things like that. with this house, but Jason has the deed, and so he's the owner.
It's kind of foolish to think that. I
It
mean, to
is.
be
It
fair.
is. It very much is. And so I'm very curious about how we got to this
Right.
because I mean, I don't remember hearing anything about anything between the two of them, but of course, I mean, I haven't been following it that closely, but
No, but there's a statement that the judge made that I think is
it
fantastic.
is. It is. She's saying what we are all.
So, in her ruling from the bench, she says, and I quote, "This entire case is a huge mess. Something's not right here."
Give it up for Judge Darrigan, everybody. She right. She is so right.
Absolutely. So, we'll continue following this and see if anything.
Yeah, yeah, we were talking right before we recorded, and then I stopped myself so that I could say it on recording because all the podcasters who listen know that this happens. Um, I just find all of this. Maybe it's just because we've been paying attention to it now, and we've been doing these episodes, and so now I'm noticing it. But all of this movement with like the paranormal real estate realm or whatever that is just very curious to me. I mean, obviously there's money in owning these properties. But I mean, we've even talked about, when we were working at the Sally House, the owner of the Sally House tried to sell it for $1 million.
Okay, that property is not worth $1 million.
No, I mean, even with the like notoriety, I mean, you're gonna
Yeah,
have to put $1 million into that house to keep it standing.
yeah. Every
Um,
time we would go, over time, you could kind of see the roof
It's
collapsing, and
bagged
it's
a
kind of
little
really
bit. And
sad.
if you go online and you look at images of the house, you can see that kind of progress over time. You can
Yeah,
probably see it on Google Street View, honestly.
probably.
Um, but that's just something that I find it's really interesting to me and how there seems to be in a lot of paranormal spaces like this sense that we should kind of have respect for the dead and the spirits that we're interacting with a lot of the time. And I'm not sure I 100% agree with that all of the time in all cases, right? Because you can be dead and be a jerk. But I think it's really interesting that we are also okay with capitalizing on this in such a blatant way that it's happening like it is right now. I mean, if you've seen how Elton Castee is running the Airbnb at the Warren House, there's all sorts of stipulations about how much investigating you can do and how much recording you can do, and it's just giving me the ick, as the kids would say. I just don't. It just bothers me. All this whole thing is just very weird to me, and I think the Conjuring House saga is kind of a microcosm of that whole thing for me.
Well, paranormal tourism in and of itself is kind of an
It's
interesting.
an interesting business,
It
right?
is.
Right.
It is. And I think some places do it better than others.
For sure. Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I'm curious to see what happens here. The Conjuring House, I mean, has just blown up in popularity since the movie series, obviously. And I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on it because it doesn't look like it's going to calm down anytime soon.
Well,
Um,
good. We need stories,
definitely need
right?
stories, and so you're going to hear about the Conjuring House from us, apparently. Well, thank you all for joining us this week on this edition as we continue to follow stories of the strange and the uncanny. This has been Headlines from the Beyond.